Greetings and welcome to the fourth episode of the history of ILA and also season 1 finale. Today we're gonna discuss about the events that happened between January 2016 and April 2016. It's been an excellent beginning of the year for ILA team. New members joined and also a lot of great tournaments were held, most of them being hosted by Jimmy. Usually when you see this deleted profile, the respective posts were made by Jimmy. Our WhatsApp chat also grew very active back then, having something like over 100 messages per day. However, this increased level of activity proved to be a two-edged sword. On the one hand, of course, it was really great to see such communication between members, but on the other hand, the apparition of inappropriate messages and arguments seemed inevitable. The spark that lit the fire came at the middle of January 2016. Just as expected, Yan remained the same person with a very fragile ego when he returned to ILA and especially to ILA Council. Being a successful leader doesn't only mean to host tournaments, recruit members and update sites. It's also about understanding the members of your team and be open to their suggestions. Yan was a man of action, but not a man who used to listen to the advices of others. Also, as a leader, you always have to be prepared for criticism, and Yan again failed to do this many times. Well, enough with the psychological analysis, let's get to the story. Yan had an act of rudeness that determined a member called Nicholas to delete his account. Joe confronted Yan not in the most diplomatic way, bringing some insults. Of course, Yan's fragile ego was hurt and somehow convinced enough council members to vote for the removal of Joe from ILA. Despite Theo, Dynasty, Boltenhagen and many other members disagreed, this situation irritated Yan even more, and when the dragon was waken up, comments like these two happened. Obviously, such disrespectful statements led to a mass leaving of ILA members. Also, Dynasty and Boltenhagen decided to leave the council and the team forever. Yan ended being overthrown by the other council members, and that's how his second reign ended. The council was reorganized in this format with Carl, Sanjay and Julian as leaders. 2 peaceful months followed, where tournaments kept coming and members kept joining, but it was obvious that ILA lost some of the shine it had before the second crisis of ILA Council. The newly established council introduced the list of birthdays. The only difference between what we're doing now and what they were doing back then is that they used to congratulate the members in the WhatsApp group. This list was also available on the blog of ILA. Also, Julian's council introduced a new rule which stated that ILA members are no longer allowed to be part of ILA and Key at the same time. Also, at the beginning of 2016, QuizUp staff came with an important update. As of January, the use of multiple devices becomes forbidden. However, any player that was on QuizUp back in 2016 can confirm that this announcement didn't change much because plain vanilla never bothered to really hand down the cheaters. So a lot of players kept using MD without having any trouble. Most of level criteria didn't change, with one exception, the FILA, where the level was increased from 75 to 100. The stability of the new council encouraged former members to return to the team, just as Monta did, as you can see in this post. Surprisingly, the end of first ILA triumvirate wasn't related to any conflict. It simply happened that Carl and Sanjay were no longer able to fulfill their tasks as leader because they were either busy or lost interest in playing QuizUp. Following the collapse of the former council, new elections were held, and there was a lot of optimism that this council will last even longer than 3 months. The results of the voting recommended Jimmy, Sana, and Julian as leaders, which in my opinion was a really wise election because Jimmy and Sana always work hard in ILA Council, and Julian had great diplomatic skills. He managed to avoid a sad ending for ILA after Carl and Sanjay left. They've also had many other people to help them, as you can see here in the list of co-leaders and assistant leaders. So it was a promising start. Jimmy and Sana did a great job updating ILA website very often. Joe's excellent recruiting skills brought a lot of new faces to the team. Julian used to begin many interesting discussions in the WhatsApp group. Same council came up with an original idea as they implemented ILA internal ranking system. Just as the title suggests, this system was created in order to rank those who registered to it. In this way, the council was creating a competitive environment for ILA members. Each ILA category had its own rankings, and these rankings were based, as you can see, on the number of levels, number of games played, number of levels of main topics, and the percentage win. A great idea in its essence, but also a very ambitious project that required a lot of hard work to keep up with such a big database of members. Meanwhile, our allies 100 plus were doing excellent. 100 plus leaders, Steph and Spencer, made the team very attractive. Even I decided to join 100 plus, of course keeping my ILA tag as it was allowed by the alliance terms. Alliance. An union based on mutual interest and benefits, as its definition says. So the question that comes in my mind is, what happens when one side no longer has any benefit? 100 plus was born from ILA, raised by ILA, and finally became better than ILA.